And you can't put a razor blade between the stones. I mean, it's incredible.
Do you think they had high technology?
Absolutely. And the evidence of it is everywhere, but we're not looking for it because we're not used to things made out of stone being high technology. And we're taught that we're the smartest that we've ever been and we're the most evolved, and we call it the myth of progress and the Darwinian delusion. And so when we look at anything Egyptian, we go along with the story that they built it with chisels and that sort of thing, and slaves pulling stuff along on with ropes and on logs. And it's not even plausible that that's what happened.
Has Zahi argued with you about some of your thoughts and theories?
Well, actually, I've kept quite a low profile, and I haven't announced to him what I was doing, and no, I haven't talked to him about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll probably hear about this one tonight.
Oh, God.
You ready? You ready for that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. There's been so much written about the Great Pyramids, so many different theories, yet nobody really understands. I'll remove you for a moment. Nobody really understands exactly what happened. Everybody has their own theories. I've heard poured theories to extraterrestrial theories. Carmen, why, yourself excluded, are so many theories out there about these pyramids and how they were constructed? I mean, all kinds of theories. How come?
Well, I think we're really curious about what the pyramids are doing there. We don't have the technology to build them today, and they are an object of fascination. There's more books written about the pyramids and Atlantis than probably any other subject known, and so we want to get to the bottom of it. But I think that the reason that we can't get to the bottom of it is we're looking at it through our own cultural lenses, through patriarchal ways of being and thinking that want to divide and conquer. And we also, have the tendency to want to be right. And so, if we say it's a poured theory, then we'll give all the reasons why that's true. But I think the problem is we're not looking at it in a larger context. Like, how did the pyramid fields work with one another? We get focused on the Great Pyramid, which is really important. But did you know that there's 6 pyramid sites with 22 pyramids north and south within a 12-mile distance of the Great Pyramid? Well, why? And Robert Bauval's talked to us about how the 3 pyramids of Giza are aligned to the belt of Orion. Well, is that all? Is it a unified theory of more stars being connected? And the other thing is that we're told that the pyramids were built in 2450 BC. Maybe that was a time when they did the last restoration on it, but there perhaps was a lot of work done before that, and they were built in far more ancient times. But we're told the Bible tries to insist that we're 6,000 years old, and it's not a popular thing to look further back. And there's reasons for that. So I think it's important not to get bogged down with little details and look at the details as well. But I also think that it will help us understand what's going on and why if we look at it from a bigger perspective.
You said earlier that Edgar Cayce had a great influence on you when you were younger. Did you study at all his discussions of a hall of records by the base of the Sphinx while you were in Egypt these 23-some times, Carmen?
Absolutely. In fact, I had a center there, a guest house, and I called it the Hall of Records Retreat Center. So it's very important. But again, we think, a lot of people think they're going to find a book written in English, in a chamber.
That's right.
And it's just not like that. It's the same thing as, there's 4,000 Egyptian hieroglyphs in hieroglyphic writing, and there's 26 letters, and we say, okay, this glyph is an A, this glyph is a B. Well, it's a completely different linguistic system, and we want to take everything we see and shove it into the paradigm that we're familiar with. And for sure, the ancient Egyptians are a really good example of something that wasn't waiting for English and us to happen when it developed.
Now, did you find, because Zahi has not admitted this to me, anything that would show that there was a Hall of Records at the base of the Sphinx?
Yes, I would say. But it's going to be energetic and symbolic and not as concrete in the way. I think we found it, yes. I think the energetic signature is out. And also, when you say at the foot of the Sphinx, and we're talking underground, there's a network of underground passageways, and I think that that is one of the best-kept secrets, and that has something to do with why that wall went up. There's a 20-foot, 20-mile, all the way around the Giza Plateau wall that cost them millions and millions of dollars. I think they locked the door after the horse was stolen, to tell you the truth, but they really didn't want people to find out what was going on under there. And there's a lot of facts in the documentary series, The Pyramid Code, that have been verifiable and articles written and that sort of thing, but you're not going to find very much about what is actually underneath the Sphinx. Now, a lot of the field work that I did had to do with going inside the body of the Sphinx, and the watchmen were letting me go in there, and one time they opened the gate and they let me go in there all by myself. And for sure, it's a magnifier of energy, and even with a watchman standing there, you get the energy of his consciousness magnified as well. So it was really quite an experience to spend so much time largely alone and then totally alone, because there's various cavities. There's the inner chamber of the heart of the Sphinx, and there's different cavities that go on the left back rump of the Sphinx, this very narrow hole now. But I've been inside there, and there's all kinds of spiral chambers. But there's also old pictures, and this is what I ended up getting access to in the archives that I talked about in the last segment, of temples that were below the level of the legs of the Sphinx, like what it would be standing on. There's an old temple of Isis down there, and many, many passages. Well, the Department of Antiquities just cemented over the top of the whole thing and paved it. And they're putting walls around it. Like, it's either they're in complete denial of the importance and even the fact that it's there, or they're really trying to cover something up. Now, I don't think we're going to get inside their minds about what they're actually doing, what they're hiding, or why. But that doesn't mean there isn't a whole network of passageways down there, because I spent 5 years in and out of holes, and of course, over the centuries, they've been blocked. Lots of little passageways that go a certain way, but then you can see that it's been blocked recently. But go ahead.
Well, how do we know that the Egyptians haven't already been down there and that they pulled things out and they're hiding them somewhere?
Well, that's a tempting thought.
Yes, it is.
But the thing, I think we're focused on a thing.
Yes,
what are you gonna find?
I expect flying machines down there, Carmen, or tablets explaining the origin of life and things like that. That's what I expect.
Okay, but when we say tablets explaining the origins of life, we have that on the fresco walls, but we're not deciphering how they're talking about biology and cosmology. The Egyptians were very focused on how we got here and what happened after we left. They had no word for death, and they understood string theory, quantum physics, all of it, biomechanics, all of it. And we see that hidden in plain sight on the frescoes. Now, the other thing is that there was a lot of information that was drowned when the Aswan Dam flooded. There were 18 temples that were under the water. They knew Abu Simbel was going to go underwater. Then later the Temple of Isis would go 3/4 of the way underwater every time the Nile flooded. But there were 16 other temples that ended up completely submerged. And all the Nubian villages and people who had ancient wisdom, because they don't have a written language, they have a verbal language, they all had to move. But now UNESCO has had time to one by one get those temples out. And recently I was able to go on a cruise on the Aswan, behind the Aswan Dam, and visit some of these temples. And I studied a lot of the frescoes that are in other temples. And there were some surprises there. There were some secrets that I hadn't seen before.
Such as?
The pharaoh inside the world tree, lots and lots of references to sacred cows, the sacred feminine, cattle cults, and that has to do with star maps and the Big Dipper and Hathor, but the connection to the Blue Lotus. And I can speak about those symbols a little later, but the point is you're saying you expect to find tablets. Well, there are tablets, some underground, some above ground. But a lot of the stuff that's in the passageways and inside the Great Pyramid aren't decorated, okay? And Chris Dunn talked about it being a machine. I'm very much into the idea that it was a huge system that functioned all together. Now, 3 years ago, you had William Henry on. I think it's ironic that he's going to be on tomorrow night.
Yes.
And he asked the question, if anybody knows